Picture this. The year is 2025. The world looks both familiar and strange. Technology has leapt forward, but old rivalries and alliances still shape the headlines. In the heart of North America, a storm is brewing, one that will test the resolve of two nations and send shockwaves far beyond their borders. The world is holding its breath, again. Newsrooms buzz with speculation, and ordinary people everywhere are glued to their screens, waiting for the next update. The stakes feel higher than ever, and uncertainty hangs in the air like a thick fog. The United States, led by President Donald Trump, is locked in tense trade talks with Canada, its polite, hockey-loving neighbor. But this time, the smiles are thin, and the handshakes are forced. The relationship, once defined by cooperation, is now strained to the breaking point. For weeks, officials have been trying to hammer out a new trade deal, with billions of dollars and millions of jobs at stake. Negotiators have worked late into the night, fueled by coffee and anxiety, as they try to bridge a widening gap between the two countries. It's a high-stakes standoff. And then, on June 27th, everything unravels. The tension in the room is palpable, every tick of the clock echoing the uncertainty of what's to come. President Trump doesn't just walk away from the table, he flips it, declaring the negotiations dead. His exit is dramatic, sending a clear message. Compromise is off the table, and the gloves are off. The spark? Canada's proposed digital services tax aimed at global tech giants, most of them American. The tax is meant to level the playing field, but to Trump, it's a direct shot at the heart of American innovation and economic power. Trump calls it a blatant attack on America's corporate champions and threatens a wave of punishing tariffs on Canadian goods. The threat is real. Suddenly everything from maple syrup to auto parts is on the line, and the economic fallout could be catastrophic for both sides. The Canadian dollar wobbles, business leaders panic, and workers fear for their jobs. Markets react instantly, with stocks tumbling and investors scrambling to make sense of the chaos. The uncertainty ripples through every sector of the economy. The timing couldn't be worse, coming right after a G7 summit that was supposed to show unity. Instead, the world sees division and discord as leaders struggle to keep the global economy on track. National pride, economic protectionism, and big tech collide in a single explosive moment. Protests erupt in the streets, politicians trade barbs in parliament, and tech companies brace for impact as the rules of the game threaten to change overnight. For Canada, the path forward is treacherous. Stand firm and risk economic devastation, or cave to its much larger neighbor. The choices are stark, and every option comes with a heavy price. Leaders weigh their options, knowing that whatever they decide will shape the nation's future for years to come. The world watches, waiting to see how the quiet neighbor to the north will respond. Allies and rivals alike are taking notes, aware that the outcome here could set a precedent for future conflicts in the digital age. It's a moment that demands a steady hand and a cool head. The pressure is immense, but so is the opportunity to show resilience and leadership on the world stage. The stage is set for a showdown. The world's eyes are fixed on the border, waiting to see who will blink first, and what the next move will be in this high-stakes game, and nobody knows what comes next. The only certainty is that history is being written in real time, and the consequences will echo far beyond this moment. When the chaos after Trump's exit, all eyes turn to Ottawa. The world is searching for stability, and Canada suddenly finds itself thrust into the spotlight, its capital buzzing with anticipation and uncertainty. And to Prime Minister Mark Carney, the man now tasked with steering the country through uncharted waters. Carney isn't your typical politician, he's a technocrat, a former central banker, and the calm in the storm. His reputation for cool-headed decision-making precedes him, and his experience at the helm of major financial institutions gives him a unique edge. While Trump fires off threats, Carney addresses the nation with measured reassurance. He speaks not just to Canadians, but to the world, projecting confidence and a steady hand. He refuses to escalate, promising relentless diplomacy instead of a tit-for-tat trade war. Carney's approach is rooted in dialogue, seeking solutions rather than stoking tensions. His message: protect Canadian workers and businesses through calm, principled negotiation. He reassures families and entrepreneurs that their livelihoods are his top priority. This approach is a deliberate contrast to the volatility from Washington. As chaos and uncertainty ripple south of the border, Carney's steadiness stands out. Carney's calm seizes the diplomatic high ground, framing Canada as the reasonable adult in the room. Allies and rivals alike take notice, recalibrating their expectations. Canadians see a government in control, the world sees a country that won't be bullied. The sense of national pride grows as Carney's leadership is tested and proven. Carney's steady leadership, just months after taking office, turns a political deficit into an election win. His ability to unite people across party lines becomes his greatest asset. Now, with the crisis at its peak, he's putting his promise of stability into action. Every decision is scrutinized, every move carefully weighed. His calm isn't just an act, it's a strategy. In a world on edge, Carney's resolve becomes Canada's greatest strength, setting the tone for what comes next. So, what was this digital services tax? Simply put, it was Canada's attempt to make tech giants like Google and Amazon pay their fair share. These companies shift profits to low-tax countries while local businesses pay up at home. The tax was popular in Canada, seen as fair and modern, but in Washington it looked like a direct attack on American firms. For Trump, it was a red line. Canada picking the pockets of US tech. The tax became the biggest sticking point, forcing Carney's government to choose between principle and economic stability. The stakes, a symbolic stand for fairness, or risking a devastating trade war. Even before Trump stormed out, the alarm bells were ringing. Tiff Macklem, governor of the Bank of Canada, warned that US tariffs could trigger a once-in-a-century economic shock. His forecast, a sharp recession, surging inflation, and mass layoffs. Tariffs would disrupt the deeply integrated supply chains between Canada and the US, hitting industries like automotive and aerospace hard. The damage wouldn't be easily fixed. Some businesses might never recover. Macklem's message: this isn't political theater, it's about real livelihoods. The warning raised the stakes for Carney's government. The pressure was immense. Find a peaceful solution, or risk economic calamity. The threat of a historic shock hung over every decision. It was a reminder that one wrong move could devastate the country. The government needed a smart, decisive response. The next move would be critical. Canada couldn't afford a misstep. With the clock ticking and the economy at risk, Canada found itself at a crossroads. The stakes were enormous. Jobs, investments, and the stability of entire industries hung in the balance. As tensions mounted and the world watched, the pressure on Canadian leaders was immense. In early July, Prime Minister Carney stepped up to the podium and made a surprise announcement. Canada would scrap the digital services tax. The decision sent shockwaves through political and business circles, both at home and abroad. It was a stunning reversal, but not a surrender. A calculated, strategic pivot designed to protect the broader economic relationship with the United States. Behind closed doors, advisors had weighed every option, searching for a way to defuse the crisis without appearing weak. The math was simple, yet the implications were profound. A few $100 million in tax revenue versus the risk of losing tens of billions in a full-blown trade war. The numbers made the choice clear, but the political cost was harder to measure. By removing the main irritant, Canada called Trump's bluff and pulled the US back to the negotiating table. It was a bold gambit, one that required nerves of steel and a willingness to take political heat at home. The result was immediate. Tariffs were withdrawn, talks resumed, and both sides could claim a win. The markets responded with relief, and the threat of economic chaos began to fade. Critics called it caving, but most Canadians, and the markets, felt a wave of relief. For many, it was proof that cooler heads could still prevail in a world of brinkmanship. The crisis was averted, and Canada was no longer on the defensive. Instead, the country had regained its footing and restored confidence among investors and allies. The move generated goodwill and reset the negotiations, opening the door to more constructive dialogue and future cooperation. Canada had sacrificed a little to save a lot, trading a short-term win for long-term stability and prosperity. It was diplomatic jiu-jitsu at its finest, a masterstroke of de-escalation that turned a looming disaster into an opportunity for renewed partnership. The path to a deal was open again, and Canada had shown the world the power of strategic compromise in the face of crisis. Canada's pivot paid off almost instantly. As new US tariffs hit the world on August 1st, Canada was spared. While other countries scrambled, Canada calmly finalized a renewed trade relationship. By dropping the tax, Canada gained a competitive edge, its goods now more attractive in the US market. Lumber, steel, and agriculture flowed south tariff-free, while rivals faced heavy taxes. This unique position gave Canada leverage in negotiations. The US, fighting trade wars on multiple fronts, needed a quick win. Carney's team secured protections for key industries that once seemed out of reach. Canada turned crisis into strength, standing as a calm island in a sea of global trade wars. The move was now seen as a shrewd investment in stability. Canada had dodged a bullet and come out stronger. While Canada breathed easy, the rest of the world faced Trump's tariff onslaught. The EU was hit with massive tariffs on steel and cars, shattering hopes for free trade. Brazil and Vietnam faced devastating new taxes, crippling their export economies. Even the BRICS nations were threatened with tariffs for challenging US financial dominance. Critical commodities like copper were targeted, driving up prices for US manufacturers. American consumers felt the pain too, with car prices surging. The message was clear: global supply chains were under siege. In this chaos, Canada's de-escalation looked like economic genius. Sometimes the smartest move is knowing when not to fight. Steering clear of a trade war, Canada did more than avoid recession. It set the stage for growth. Jobs in manufacturing, agriculture, and resources were saved. Small businesses, the backbone of the economy, could plan and invest again. The cloud of uncertainty lifted. The dollar strengthened, markets rallied, and confidence returned. Canada's tariff-free status attracted foreign investment, making it the gateway to the US market. The new trade deal, expected by mid-July, positioned Canada for a stronger future. Carney's government earned political capital in Washington and at home. Quiet competence had triumphed over confrontation. Canada's calm approach paid off, now and for years to come. What can the world learn from Canada's trade crisis? First, strategic calm matters. Carney's refusal to escalate kept the door open for solutions. Second, pragmatic flexibility. Canada gave up a principle to secure a much bigger win. Third, know your adversary. By letting Trump claim victory, Canada de-escalated the crisis. This wasn't appeasement, it was smart, targeted problem-solving. Canada's quiet diplomacy turned a weak hand into a strong one. The lesson: don't get drawn into drama. Focus on core interests, make strategic sacrifices, and keep your cool. In a noisy world, Canada showed the power of the quiet win. Sometimes, substance beats style. And that's a lesson worth remembering.